I warned them the past would rise again.
My blood is pure. My legacy is ancient.
I carry the blood of both monsters.
Protect the throne built on lies.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
The Underworld franchise has long stood as a hallmark of dark fantasy action cinema, blending gothic aesthetics with intense combat sequences and a layered supernatural mythology. Created by Kevin Grevioux, Len Wiseman, and Danny McBride, the series began in 2003 with Underworld, introducing audiences to the secret of war between vampires and Lycans. The franchise centers on Selene, a fierce vampire death dealer portrayed by Kate Beckinsale, whose mission to eliminate Lycans is complicated by revelations about her own species, forbidden love, and moral ambiguities. The first film established the signature style of the series, moody cinematography, high-intensity action choreography, and a richly imagined world hidden beneath the human surface. Underworld, Evolution, 2006, expanded the mythology, revealing the deep history of vampire and Lycan bloodlines while following Selene's journey of self-discovery. The film emphasized moral complexity, loyalty, and revenge, particularly through the story of Lycan, the first Lycan capable of transforming voluntarily, who rebels against vampire oppression. Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, 2009, served as a prequel, portraying the origins of the Lycan rebellion and exploring themes of love, freedom, and resistance under tyranny. The fourth film, Underworld, Awakening, 2012, moved the narrative into a dystopian setting where humans have discovered the existence of vampires and Lycans, introducing hybrids as a disruptive force in the already tense species hierarchy. Finally, Underworld, Blood Wars, 2016, concluded Selene's immediate story arc, depicting her struggle against vampire elders and hybrid threats while maintaining the series' core themes of loyalty, morality, and identity. Central characters define the franchise's emotional core. Selene is disciplined, lethal, and morally nuanced, navigating the tension between duty and personal desire. Michael Corvin, a human-turned-hybrid, embodies coexistence between species and raises questions of identity and moral responsibility. Lycan represents the Lycan struggle for freedom and justice, emphasizing the franchise's recurring exploration of morally complex adversaries. Vampire elders such as Victor, Amelia, and Marcus illustrate tradition, power, and authoritarian control, while hybrids symbolize evolution, the disruption of hierarchy, and the ethical dilemmas of combining species. These characters, supported by a rich cast of secondary figures, provide narrative depth and allow the franchise to explore morality, loyalty, identity, and the consequences of conflict. The franchise's mythology is equally intricate. Vampires are hierarchical, long-lived, and bound by strict codes, while Lycans value freedom but endure systematic oppression. Hybrids exist outside traditional categories, challenging both species' power structures and introducing moral, ethical, and existential questions. Gothic visuals, high-contrast lighting, and kinetic action sequences enhance this mythology, creating a cohesive and immersive world. Despite Blood Wars concluding the main storyline, speculation about Underworld 6 persists. No official confirmation has been issued by Screen Gems or Sony Pictures, but fan enthusiasm has generated a wealth of AI-generated trailers, concept art, and theories. Speculative plotlines suggest the emergence of new vampire bloodlines, rogue hybrid factions, and mystical artifacts such as the rumored Crimson Blood, capable of shifting the balance of power. These narratives often feature Selene confronting unprecedented threats, navigating complex alliances, and guiding new hybrid generations while maintaining personal and ethical integrity. Michael Corvin may return as a moral and strategic partner, bridging human and supernatural perspectives. Political upheaval among vampires and Lycans, combined with hybrid evolution, promises rich storytelling potential, reflecting the franchise's long-standing interest in leadership, loyalty, and consequence. Fan engagement has been central to the franchise's sustained relevance. Social media, forums, and AI content allow audiences to actively speculate, create, and expand the narrative, generating realistic portrayals of Underworld's 6 scenarios. While these contributions sometimes blur the line between official production and speculation, they highlight the franchise's enduring appeal and the cultural investment of its fanbase. Fans explore unresolved conflicts, generational shifts, and hybrid emergence, keeping the universe alive in public consciousness despite the absence of confirmed sequels. Culturally, Underworld has influenced the portrayal of female protagonists in action horror contexts. Selene's character combines physical prowess with moral and emotional complexity, setting a benchmark for strong female leads in the genre. The franchise's visual style, gothic, moody, and cinematic, has informed subsequent supernatural and action films, while its serialized storytelling and layered mythology have shaped audience expectations for continuity, narrative depth, and multi-installment character development. By blending spectacle, complex moral frameworks, and serialized mythology, the series has established a durable blueprint for supernatural action franchises. Thematic explorations in the series revolve around morality, identity, forbidden love, and the consequences of war. Characters operate within morally ambiguous landscapes, often confronting difficult choices that challenge duty, loyalty, and personal desire. Identity is central, particularly for hybrids, who exist between species and challenge traditional boundaries. Forbidden love, as exemplified by Selene and Michael, and Lucian and Sonia, provides emotional depth and narrative tension, highlighting the intersection of personal and societal obligations. War, both internal and external, serves as a backdrop for these explorations, emphasizing the costs of prolonged conflict and the ethical dilemmas inherent in leadership and rebellion. Underworld 6 could further explore these themes, potentially depicting Selene and Michael facing unprecedented hybrid-led insurgencies, ancient vampire factions reasserting dominance, and the emergence of mystical artifacts that alter power dynamics. Political intrigue among vampire elders, Lycan leaders, and hybrids would create narrative tension, driving the action while allowing for layered ethical and moral reflection. Speculative endings range from triumph through reconciliation and coexistence to darker outcomes in which conflict escalates, reinforcing the franchise's flexibility and thematic richness. The franchise also has significant potential for multimedia expansion. Television series could explore secondary character arcs, hybrid evolution, and factional politics in serialized depth. Video games could provide interactive storytelling, allowing players to inhabit vampire, Lycan, or hybrid roles, navigating strategic and moral decisions. Graphic novels and prose adaptations could further enrich the mythos, exploring backstories, historical conflicts, and previously unseen factions. Transmedia storytelling would enable sustained audience engagement while expanding narrative complexity beyond the cinematic medium. In summary, Underworld 6, whether realized as a film, series, or other adaptation, holds the potential to continue the franchise's legacy of blending high-octane action with layered mythology, ethical complexity, and immersive visual storytelling. Its enduring cultural significance stems from strong, nuanced characters, gothic aesthetics, serialized mythology, and the active participation of a global fanbase. While no official confirmation exists, speculation continues to drive interest and creative exploration, reflecting both the franchise's narrative richness and its influence on supernatural action storytelling. Through future installments, transmedia expansions, and continued fan engagement, the Underworld universe remains a vibrant and evolving narrative landscape, poised to captivate audiences while exploring morality, identity, and the consequences of conflict in a hidden, gothic world of vampires, Lycans, and hybrids. The cultural impact of the Underworld franchise extends far beyond its immediate box office performance, positioning the series as a seminal influence on modern vampire and werewolf media. From its inception, Underworld distinguished itself through its dark, gothic aesthetic, morally complex characters, and high-intensity action sequences, setting it apart from traditional horror films that often relied solely on suspense or jump scares. The franchise's success in blending action, romance, and supernatural mythology established a new paradigm for vampire narratives, influencing a generation of filmmakers and storytellers who sought to merge visual spectacle with rich, immersive world-building. Audiences responded positively to this unique approach, embracing the series' combination of stylistic visuals, complex mythology, and engaging character arcs. Selene, in particular, became an iconic figure within the realm of female action protagonists, celebrated for her physical prowess, strategic intelligence, and emotional depth. Her portrayal challenged traditional gender roles in action cinema, demonstrating that female characters could lead high-stakes narratives with both strength and vulnerability. The franchise's reception has been mixed among critics but consistently strong with audiences, reflecting a division between cinematic critique and fan enthusiasm. Critics have often praised the series for its visual style, imaginative world-building, and choreographed action sequences, while occasionally critiquing its narrative pacing or dialogue. However, fans have consistently embraced the films, drawn to the franchise's immersive universe, the ongoing vampire Lycan conflict, and the enduring character of Selene. This contrast between critical reception and audience engagement highlights the franchise's ability to resonate on an emotional and aesthetic level, regardless of conventional evaluative standards. Underworld's appeal lies in its capacity to create a believable supernatural ecosystem populated by morally complex characters, engaging conflicts, and visually compelling environments, fostering loyalty among viewers who invest deeply in the series' mythology and characters. Box office performance across the franchise demonstrates the commercial viability of the Underworld universe. The original film achieved strong returns relative to its budget, encouraging the production of sequels that expanded both the scope and ambition of the series. Subsequent films, including Underworld, Evolution, Rise of the Lycans, Awakening, and Blood Wars, continued to draw audiences through a combination of franchise recognition, established character loyalty, and anticipation for narrative continuation. While some installments performed better commercially than others, the overall consistency of audience engagement underscores the franchise's enduring popularity. Even in installments with mixed critical reviews, fan interest remained high, supporting a robust market for merchandise, spin-offs, and extended media, including video games, graphic novels, and collectibles. The series' ability to maintain relevance over more than 2 decades attests to its cultural resonance and the persistent fascination with its supernatural universe. Beyond financial metrics, Underworld has influenced broader pop culture, particularly in the portrayal of vampires and Lycans in film, television, literature, and gaming. The franchise popularized the concept of vampires as physically formidable, morally complex warriors rather than purely romanticized or monstrous figures. Similarly, Lycans evolved from traditional horror tropes into sympathetic, rebellious characters with distinct social structures and ethical frameworks. This nuanced depiction of supernatural beings has informed subsequent media, encouraging storytellers to explore ethical ambiguity, political hierarchies, and personal motivation in vampire and werewolf narratives. The franchise's hybrid characters, blending the strengths of both species, introduce themes of identity, moral complexity, and potential reconciliation, inspiring creative approaches to supernatural storytelling that extend beyond conventional binaries of good versus evil. The Underworld franchise has also had a notable impact on visual aesthetics and action choreography within the action horror genre. Its integration of slow-motion combat sequences, stylized gunplay, and martial arts-inspired movements influenced other action-oriented supernatural films, shaping audience expectations for the depiction of superhuman abilities on screen. The combination of Gothic architecture, shadowed urban landscapes, and carefully curated color palettes has become emblematic of the series, influencing costume design, cinematography, and set construction in later vampire and supernatural media. Additionally, the portrayal of female protagonists capable of leading action narratives with intelligence, skill, and emotional complexity has contributed to broader conversations about representation and gender roles in genre cinema, positioning Selene as an influential model for female-led action franchises. Fan engagement has further amplified the franchise's cultural impact. Online communities, discussion forums, social media platforms, and fan conventions have facilitated sustained interest in the Underworld universe, providing spaces for speculation, fan art, fan fiction, and collaborative analysis. These interactions have kept the franchise relevant between film releases, fostering a sense of community among enthusiasts and encouraging creative interpretations of established characters, lore, and potential future storylines. The anticipation and discourse surrounding a potential Underworld 6 exemplify this dynamic, as fans collectively explore hypothetical plot developments, casting possibilities, and narrative directions. This level of engagement demonstrates the franchise's capacity to inspire imaginative investment and maintain cultural relevance long after its initial release. The franchise has also had an impact on merchandising and transmedia storytelling. Video games, graphic novels, and collectibles have allowed fans to engage with the Underworld universe in interactive and creative ways, expanding the narrative experience beyond the films themselves. These media adaptations reinforce the franchise's mythology, explore untold stories, and provide opportunities for audience participation in the ongoing supernatural conflict. The consistent presence of Underworld across multiple platforms illustrates the series' ability to maintain a multidimensional cultural footprint, engaging fans through both narrative content and interactive experiences. Internationally, the franchise has attracted audiences across diverse markets, contributing to its global cultural resonance. The universal themes of loyalty, rebellion, love, and survival, combined with visually compelling action and supernatural mythology, have enabled Underworld to transcend linguistic and cultural boundaries. International box office performance, merchandising, and fan communities reflect the franchise's capacity to engage viewers worldwide, further solidifying its status as a culturally significant and influential series. The global reach of the franchise underscores its enduring appeal, with audiences drawn to the rich mythology, compelling characters, and immersive supernatural universe. In the context of potential Underworld 6, fan expectations regarding cultural continuity are particularly pronounced. Audiences anticipate that the series will maintain its established visual identity, complex character arcs, and ethical nuance, while expanding narrative scope and introducing new conflicts, characters, and supernatural phenomena. Speculation about the sixth installment reflects a desire to see the franchise continue its cultural impact, potentially redefining elements of the vampire Lycan conflict, exploring the implications of hybrid existence, and deepening character development for Selene and other central figures. The interplay of established mythology, fan engagement, and ongoing creative speculation ensures that even in the absence of official confirmation, Underworld 6 remains a topic of cultural significance and imaginative investment. The speculative timeline of Underworld 6 could begin in the immediate aftermath of Blood Wars, with vampire estates partially reconstructed, Lycan populations in clandestine recovery, and hybrids struggling to find their place in this fragile equilibrium. The opening sequence might depict Selene surveying the ruins of a once mighty vampire stronghold, reflecting on the countless lives lost and contemplating the tenuous peace that holds only by the thinnest thread. Shadows of past battles linger, and whispers of an emerging threat circulate among surviving vampires, hinting at the reawakening of an ancient pureblood faction. The opening establishes the stakes being not just survival, but the preservation of centuries-old legacies and the future of a new hybrid generation. The narrative would likely transition to the hybrid characters, exploring their personal journeys and inner conflicts. Imagine a young hybrid, perhaps Selene's protégé, struggling with identity and the duality of their nature. In dialogue with Selene, they might voice doubts about their allegiance. I'm not fully either, Selene. How can I fight for a side that doesn't accept me? Selene's response, tempered by her own centuries of experience, could emphasize mentorship, resilience, and moral clarity. Your strength is not in choosing a side, it's in choosing who you protect and what you fight for. This exchange establishes character depth, moral stakes, and emotional resonance, anchoring the high-octane action in humanistic themes. Simultaneously, the antagonist faction could be depicted orchestrating subtle, insidious moves to destabilize the fragile alliances. The pureblood vampire queen might convene her elite council in dimly lit chambers, plotting maneuvers to undermine Selene's coalition. Dialogue among her followers could reveal ambition, rivalry, and ideological tension, as some argue for direct assault while others advocate manipulation and subterfuge. These scenes would provide narrative tension, showcase the hierarchy and culture of the pureblood faction, and foreshadow the conflicts to come. The Lycan perspective could be introduced through a hidden stronghold, where seasoned leaders strategize to reclaim power. Rituals, training sequences, and strategic discussions could establish a society both primal and disciplined. A Lycan leader might confront younger members, emphasizing lessons learned from centuries of oppression: we do not strike recklessly. We wait. We watch. And when the time is right, we will remind the world why we endure. Such sequences reinforce Lycan cultural identity, elevate narrative complexity, and create anticipation for their eventual engagement in the climactic battles. The first act of the film could include smaller skirmishes, testing the new alliances. Vampires, hybrids, and Lycans may encounter ambushes orchestrated by rogue factions, resulting in visually dynamic fight sequences. Cinematography could exploit environmental contrasts: Gothic halls for vampires, industrial ruins for hybrids, dense forests for Lycans, while employing slow-motion, wide-angle shots, and shadow interplay to heighten tension. Each action sequence could be motivated by character stakes: a hybrid defending a mentor, a Lycan protecting territory, or Selene intervening to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. These battles serve to introduce audiences to new characters, showcase their abilities, and set the tone for the escalating conflict. The middle act might involve strategic infiltration or pursuit sequences, where Selene and her coalition attempt to uncover the pureblood faction's plans. Suspenseful dialogue could heighten tension: they've always been patient. But patience has its limits. We cannot afford mistakes. Each character, including hybrids and Lycans, would be tested morally and physically, navigating traps, ambushes, and ethical dilemmas. The integration of dialogue, visual storytelling, and suspenseful pacing ensures that action sequences remain meaningful, reflecting character development and advancing the overarching narrative. Character backstories could be explored through flashbacks or conversations, providing emotional depth and context. For instance, a Lycan leader might reveal a personal loss inflicted by vampires centuries ago, explaining both motivation and loyalty. Similarly, hybrids might recount experiences of marginalization or experimentation, reinforcing their inner conflicts and narrative importance. These sequences allow audiences to empathize with characters across species, highlighting the franchise's recurring theme: identity is complex, loyalty is tested, and choices define destiny. The climactic sequences would integrate all factions in a multi-layered battle. Vampire elite units, pureblood loyalists, hybrid protagonists, and strategic Lycans could converge across diverse terrains, from Gothic citadels to urban rooftops and shadowed forests. Each faction's combat style, vampire precision, Lycan brute strength, hybrid adaptability, would be emphasized, creating kinetic visual storytelling that is both thrilling and narratively significant. Dialogue during these sequences could underline stakes: we fight not for dominance, but for survival. For them. For the future. Such lines ground spectacle in thematic resonance, ensuring that action advances story and character arcs. The finale might feature a duel between Selene and the pureblood vampire queen, combining visual spectacle, supernatural abilities, and emotional stakes. Slow-motion sequences could highlight combat techniques, while strategic environmental interaction, leaping across rooftops, dodging collapsing structures, would emphasize both characters' skill and resourcefulness. Moments of vulnerability, sacrifice, and moral decision-making would humanize the duel, reflecting the broader thematic questions of legacy, choice, and redemption. Supporting characters, including hybrids and Lycans, would influence the outcome, demonstrating interconnectedness and reinforcing the narrative that no one fights alone in this world. The denouement could depict the aftermath: a tentative new order, hybrids assuming leadership roles, and survivors forging alliances across species. While victory may be achieved, subtle hints of lingering threats, perhaps dormant pureblood vampires or undiscovered hybrid factions, could leave the story open for future installments, maintaining suspense and franchise continuity. Themes of identity, moral complexity, and legacy would persist, ensuring that narrative depth complements spectacle. Marketing and visual presentation would likely emphasize the franchise's signature blend of Gothic aesthetics and modern cinematic technology. Strategic lighting, atmospheric shadows, color-coded faction motifs, and choreographed action would provide both style and clarity. Online engagement through teasers, character reveals, and interactive media could deepen fan investment while maintaining control over narrative perception. By balancing spectacle with storytelling and fan interaction, the franchise could sustain momentum and expand audience anticipation for future stories. The thematic core of the Underworld franchise has always been as compelling as its action and visual spectacle. Central themes such as immortality, morality, family, loyalty, and legacy permeate each installment, providing the philosophical depth that distinguishes the series from other supernatural action horror properties. In fan speculations for Underworld 6, these themes are imagined to take on new dimensions, reflecting both the evolution of the characters and the potential expansion of the franchise's mythology. Immortality, for instance, is a constant point of reflection for characters like Selene and the Vampire Elders. While it grants them extraordinary abilities, extended life also brings isolation, the weight of historical knowledge, and the moral burden of choices made over centuries. In speculative narratives, Underworld 6 could explore how these characters confront the consequences of their past actions, the ethical dilemmas inherent in power, and the difficulty of navigating relationships across generations. Morality in the Underworld universe is rarely black and white. Vampires, Lycans, and hybrids operate in a morally ambiguous landscape where survival, loyalty, and personal ambition frequently conflict. Selene embodies this complexity, as her actions often straddle the line between justice and vengeance. Fan theorists envision Underworld 6 exploring even more intricate moral dilemmas, particularly in the context of alliances between rival factions or confrontations with new supernatural threats. The presence of Eve as a hybrid further complicates the moral landscape, as her unique abilities and lineage raise questions about loyalty, the justification of violence, and the ethical responsibilities of power. These speculative explorations reinforce the franchise's long-standing interest in examining ethical ambiguity in a fantastical, action-driven setting. Family and legacy are also recurring motifs that fan theories suggest will be central to Underworld 6. The mother-daughter relationship between Selene and Eve represents both personal stakes and broader thematic resonance. Eve embodies the potential for a new order within the vampire-Lycan conflict, and her existence forces Selene to confront the responsibilities of parenthood alongside her role as a warrior. In fan-generated narratives, this dynamic is often a lens through which the broader themes of inheritance, destiny, and choice are explored. The question of legacy extends beyond individual families to entire species, as vampires and Lycans must reconcile with the histories and traditions that define them. Fan speculation imagines Underworld 6 addressing the potential for reconciliation, evolution, or perpetuation of the war, using family and bloodline as narrative anchors. Another thematic thread is the cyclical nature of conflict. The series has consistently depicted wars that span generations, fueled by vengeance, betrayal, and the pursuit of power. Fan theories for Underworld 6 frequently emphasize the continuation of this cycle, with new antagonists, hidden factions, and ancient prophecies threatening to reignite hostilities. These narratives allow for the exploration of recurring patterns, the consequences of historical decisions, and the possibility of breaking or perpetuating cycles of violence. Such thematic exploration reinforces the franchise's philosophical depth while providing a rich canvas for action, suspense, and character development. Fan theories also explore narrative experimentation, including nonlinear storytelling, dual perspectives, or morally complex protagonists whose allegiances shift over time. Underworld 6 could, in theory, employ these techniques to deepen engagement and challenge audience expectations. For example, a storyline might follow simultaneous perspectives of Selene, Eve, and a hybrid antagonist, highlighting differing ethical frameworks, motivations, and cultural backgrounds. Such narrative experimentation would align with the franchise's tradition of blending action with layered storytelling, emphasizing both spectacle and introspection. The role of ancient knowledge, artifacts, and supernatural lore is another element frequently highlighted in fan speculation. Underworld 6 is imagined to explore hidden histories, forgotten powers, and secrets that challenge established hierarchies. These elements serve as both plot devices and thematic symbols, illustrating the tension between tradition and innovation, the consequences of wielding power without understanding, and the potential for knowledge to both liberate and destroy. Fan-generated scenarios often integrate these elements into climactic sequences, providing opportunities for character growth, ethical reflection, and spectacular visual storytelling. Narrative conclusions, as envisioned in speculative accounts, tend to balance resolution with ambiguity. Fans imagine scenarios where Selene and Eve achieve a measure of peace or stability, yet the consequences of immortality, moral choices, and interspecies conflict remain ever present. Such conclusions preserve the franchise's philosophical depth while leaving room for further exploration, reflecting the ongoing nature of the Vampire Lycan saga. The interplay between resolution and ambiguity also reinforces the thematic richness of the series, emphasizing that immortality and legacy are ongoing challenges rather than finite narratives. In addition to narrative themes, Underworld 6 is imagined to explore the psychological and emotional dimensions of its characters more deeply. Selene's internal struggles, her isolation, grief, and sense of duty, are complemented by Eve's exploration of identity, power, and moral responsibility. Fan speculation suggests that these psychological dimensions could be integrated with action-driven sequences, creating a layered narrative where character development and spectacular combat coexist harmoniously. This approach would enhance both emotional engagement and narrative coherence, emphasizing the human, or supernatural, stakes within the Gothic action universe. Finally, the potential evolution of the franchise through Underworld 6 lies in its ability to synthesize legacy, action, mythology, and thematic complexity into a cohesive narrative. By exploring the consequences of immortality, the intricacies of morality, the bonds of family, and the cyclical nature of conflict, the franchise can continue to captivate audiences while expanding its mythological and aesthetic boundaries. Fan engagement, speculative content, and creative discourse ensure that the Underworld universe remains culturally relevant and narratively fertile, even in the absence of official confirmation. In this context, Underworld 6 represents not merely a continuation of a story, but an opportunity to explore philosophical questions, ethical dilemmas, and the evolving dynamics of a richly constructed supernatural world. The air in the central chamber crackled with raw energy as Selene, the Lycan Alpha, and Kale faced Vera directly. Every breath seemed charged with the tension of centuries, every heartbeat echoing like a drum of war. Vera's eyes glowed with an unnatural crimson light as she channeled her blood magic into a devastating assault. Spires of dark energy shot toward the trio, walls twisted and warped, and shadows took on tangible, writhing forms, attacking indiscriminately. Selene moved like a phantom, her pistols and blades a blur, deflecting attacks with precision honed over countless battles. The Lycan Alpha's raw strength collided with the magical constructs, tearing through them with explosive force, each strike sending shockwaves through the chamber. Kale stepped forward, his small form betraying none of the immense power surging through him. He closed his eyes, focusing on the rhythm of the battle, the movements of allies and enemies alike. His hands moved subtly, manipulating the flow of magic and the trajectory of attacks. Rocks, debris, and shadows shifted under his command, disrupting Vera's spells and creating openings. The chamber seemed to pulse with his presence, the magical field responding instinctively to his will. Even Vera, confident in her mastery, faltered for a brief moment, sensing that the child she had sought to control was now an unpredictable force shaping the battlefield. The turning point came as Selene and the Lycan Alpha coordinated a direct assault, using the openings created by Kale to penetrate Vera's defenses. Selene's agility allowed her to move past the enchanted wards, landing precise strikes against the pure-blood lieutenant guards, while the Lycan Alpha tore through the constructs blocking their path. The air was thick with energy, blood, and tension, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch, each movement a calculated gamble. Selene's eyes met the Lycan Alpha's, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They were the spearhead of an alliance that must hold at all costs, for failure meant not only death but the potential extinction of both vampire and Lycan factions. Vera, realizing the tide was turning, unleashed her full power. Dark tendrils of blood magic surged from her body, filling the chamber with oppressive energy, bending the shadows and twisting the walls. Her voice rang with authority and malice. You think you can defy the pure-blood legacy? You, mere children of fractured lines, dare to challenge what we perfected for centuries? Her power surged, a maelstrom of destruction, and for a moment, the chamber seemed on the brink of collapse. Yet Kale, despite his youth, responded instinctively. He projected a counterwave of energy, stabilizing the environment, redirecting Vera's magic, and creating a barrier that protected Selene and the Lycan Alpha from the full brunt of her assault. The confrontation became intensely personal. Selene engaged Vera directly, blades clashing with the extensions of her blood magic. Each strike was a dance of speed and precision, the force of centuries behind every motion. The Lycan Alpha, sensing an opportunity, attacked from above, using his agility and brute strength to destabilize Vera's footing. Kale, positioned strategically, manipulated the battlefield subtly, using his powers to amplify their strikes and weaken the pure-blood leader's defenses. It was a symphony of cooperation, instinct, and raw power, a moment where centuries of preparation and evolution collided in a decisive struggle. The climax reached its zenith as Vera attempted a final, desperate spell designed to annihilate her adversaries completely. Shadows coalesced into massive forms, energy surged like a storm, and the very ground beneath them trembled. Kale, sensing the enormity of the attack, drew upon the deepest reserves of his hybrid powers, focusing not just on physical manipulation but on the mystical resonance that connected him to both vampire and Lycan lines. The chamber resonated with energy as Kale projected a counterforce, a wave of harmonized power that neutralized Vera's spell and sent her sprawling. Selene and the Lycan Alpha seized the moment, combining their strength in a coordinated strike that shattered Vera's defenses, breaking the pure-blood leader's control over her followers and rendering her vulnerable for the first time in centuries. The final moments of combat were brutal and decisive. The pure-blood lieutenants, now leaderless and destabilized, fell under the relentless assault of Selene, the Lycan Alpha, and their combined forces. Hybrid soldiers either fled or surrendered, their loyalty to Vera evaporated in the absence of her dominating presence. Selene moved with lethal precision, neutralizing threats while protecting Kale, whose powers continued to evolve, subtly controlling the battlefield to minimize collateral damage. The fortress, once a symbol of pure-blood supremacy, now lay in ruin, its dark enchantments collapsing under the weight of the decisive victory. In the aftermath, Selene, the Lycan Alpha, and Kale stood amidst the rubble, their breaths heavy but controlled, surveying the destruction wrought by centuries of conflict and the climax of this war. The alliances forged in desperation had held, trust had been tested, and the hybrid child had emerged not as a tool, but as a sovereign force capable of shaping the future. The Vampire Council, once divided, acknowledged the necessity of unity, while the Lycan factions recognized the potential for cooperation beyond the battlefield. Though the victory was hard-won, it marked a turning point, a moment where centuries of enmity could be re-evaluated, and the possibility of coexistence glimpsed for the first time. Kale, exhausted but aware of his growing powers, looked to Selene and the Lycan Alpha. In his eyes, a determination glimmered, a recognition that the war was not just about survival, but about forging a legacy that transcended centuries of conflict. Selene placed a protective hand on his shoulder, a gesture of both guidance and acknowledgement. "You've changed everything," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "Not just the battlefield, not just the factions, but the very future of our world." The Lycan Alpha nodded, his gaze serious but tinged with respect. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The child carries the hope we all need. If we fail him, we fail everything." The ruins of the fortress became a symbol of a new era. Vampire and Lycan forces, bloodied but victorious, began to rebuild, not as enemies but as reluctant allies, recognizing that the pure-blood threat had forced a re-evaluation of old prejudices and rivalries. Kale, though still young, would play a central role in guiding this fragile peace, learning to balance his immense powers with the responsibilities they entailed. Selene, ever vigilant, remained a guardian and strategist, her centuries of experience ensuring that the lessons of history were neither forgotten nor repeated. The Lycan Alpha returned to his pack, but with a renewed sense of purpose and the possibility of sustained cooperation with former enemies, a testament to the fragile but essential alliances forged in the crucible of war. In the weeks following the battle, remnants of the pureblood faction were hunted down or contained, their influence diminished but not entirely eradicated. The Vampire Council enacted reforms to prevent internal treachery, while the Lycan leaders worked to consolidate unity among their packs. Kale, under the guidance of Selene and other mentors, began to explore the full extent of his hybrid powers, learning to integrate the strengths of both vampire and Lycan heritage while resisting the seductive allure of domination that the purebloods had once promised him. The supernatural world, though still fraught with danger and tension, now held the possibility of balance, a testament to the endurance, strategy, and courage of those who had survived the storm. Yet even in victory, the shadows lingered. Whispers of ancient powers, long thought dormant, began to circulate among the remaining supernatural factions. The ruins of the fortress, though partially collapsed, held secrets yet uncovered, runes and artifacts of power that could alter the balance once more. Selene, ever watchful, knew that vigilance would always be required. The world had shifted, but history was never truly over, and the potential for future conflict, innovation, and discovery remained. The legacy of vampires, Lycans, and hybrids was now intertwined in ways that demanded careful stewardship, and the choices made in the wake of this battle would echo for centuries to come. Speculation about the future of the Underworld franchise, particularly the possibility of a sixth installment, has captured the imagination of fans and industry observers alike. Given the unresolved narrative threads in previous films, the series offers fertile ground for continued exploration of vampire and Lycan societies, the emergence of hybrid threats, and the personal evolution of Selene as a central figure. Fans anticipate that Underworld 6 could expand upon the delicate balance of power established in Blood Wars, where both vampires and Lycans are forced to confront new challenges, including hidden factions, ancient secrets, and the moral implications of hybrid creation. The pureblood vampires, who represent the apex of vampire society, are frequently imagined as returning antagonists or mysterious forces whose resurgence could destabilize established hierarchies, forcing characters to navigate a complex web of alliances, betrayals, and strategic maneuvering. Such scenarios would remain consistent with the franchise's themes of loyalty, vengeance, and survival while introducing fresh narrative tension. A key area of potential exploration in Underworld 6 is the continued development of hybrids. Given their unique combination of vampire and Lycan traits, hybrids provide both narrative and thematic possibilities. They challenge established power structures, question assumptions about identity and morality, and create unpredictable variables within the ongoing conflict. Speculative narratives often envision hybrids either as instruments of chaos, loyal allies, or independent actors capable of influencing the balance of power. Their existence raises ethical dilemmas for both vampires and Lycans. Should they be embraced as the next stage in evolutionary development, or feared as aberrations whose powers could threaten all species? Addressing these questions could provide a deeper philosophical dimension to the franchise, reinforcing its long-standing emphasis on morally complex decision-making and the consequences of immortality. Selene's continued evolution remains central to any potential sixth installment. As a character who has faced immense personal loss, moral challenges, and relentless conflict, she embodies both the physical and emotional resilience that has defined the franchise. Fan speculation suggests that Underworld 6 could explore her role not merely as a warrior but also as a leader, strategist, and potential mediator between opposing factions. Her relationship with hybrids, her reconciliation with past traumas, and her navigation of interspecies politics could serve as the emotional core of the story, offering audiences both action-driven spectacle and character-driven drama. Such a focus aligns with the franchise's history of integrating visually striking action sequences with nuanced character arcs, ensuring that narrative depth complements aesthetic intensity. Potential plotlines for Underworld 6 often incorporate elements of political intrigue, secret histories, and supernatural artifacts. Rediscovered or newly revealed artifacts, such as ancient vampire relics or Lycan talismans, could serve as catalysts for conflict, imbuing characters with new powers or revealing hidden truths about the supernatural world. This aligns with established franchise conventions, where ancient knowledge, bloodline secrets, and mystical elements frequently drive narrative developments. Incorporating these elements would allow Underworld 6 to expand the mythology of the series while maintaining continuity with the established universe, offering both longtime fans and new audiences a sense of discovery and suspense. The visual and stylistic expectations for Underworld 6 are similarly informed by the franchise's legacy. Audiences anticipate the continuation of dark Gothic aesthetics, sophisticated vampire costumes, primal Lycan environments, and the dynamic visual depiction of hybrid abilities. Advances in CGI, motion capture, and cinematography could enable filmmakers to depict more elaborate transformations, intricate battle choreography, and expansive supernatural landscapes. Maintaining consistency with previous installments while innovating with new technology would allow Underworld 6 to honor the franchise's identity while enhancing visual spectacle and immersive storytelling. From a narrative perspective, the interplay of ethical and moral dilemmas is expected to remain a core element. Decisions made by Selene, hybrid characters, and faction leaders could challenge audiences to consider themes of loyalty, justice, and survival in morally ambiguous contexts. The franchise's emphasis on morally complex characters ensures that any new installment would likely continue to explore the tension between personal desire and communal responsibility, highlighting the consequences of power, immortality, and interspecies conflict. In doing so, Underworld 6 could remain both action-oriented and philosophically engaging, reinforcing the series' reputation for blending kinetic spectacle with thoughtful character and thematic development. Considering the franchise's cultural impact, Underworld 6, if produced, would not exist in isolation but as a continuation of a legacy that has influenced vampire and supernatural media worldwide. Its potential release would likely generate renewed interest in earlier installments, reinvigorate fan engagement, and inspire new content across multiple platforms, including video games, graphic novels, and online fan communities. The series' history of cultivating a dedicated audience, combined with its distinctive aesthetic and mythology, suggests that any new installment could contribute meaningfully to both narrative and cultural discourse surrounding supernatural action cinema. In synthesizing the confirmed history of the Underworld franchise with speculative possibilities for Underworld 6, several key insights emerge. First, the series has consistently balanced visual style, action, and character depth, creating a universe that is both immersive and narratively rich. Second, unresolved narrative threads, such as the political dynamics of vampire factions, the rise of hybrids, and the consequences of ancient secrets, provide ample opportunities for expansion. Third, fan engagement, speculation, and creative discourse demonstrate the enduring relevance and cultural resonance of the franchise, ensuring that interest in a potential sixth installment remains high. Finally, any future development, including Underworld 6, would need to honor established mythology, visual style, and character continuity while introducing novel conflicts, characters, and ethical dilemmas to sustain narrative tension and audience investment. Ultimately, the speculative future of the Underworld franchise illustrates the enduring appeal of its universe. By combining Gothic aesthetics, dynamic action, complex characters, and intricate mythology, the series has created a framework that supports both ongoing narrative expansion and creative audience engagement. Underworld 6, whether realized in official form or remaining a subject of speculation, represents the potential continuation of a universe that has fascinated audiences for over 2 decades, offering the possibility of deeper exploration, new conflicts, and the further evolution of beloved characters like Selene. The franchise's legacy, shaped by visual innovation, moral complexity, and immersive storytelling, ensures that its cultural and narrative significance will persist, maintaining relevance in the broader landscape of supernatural action cinema. Hybrids in Underworld 6 could serve as the emotional and thematic core of the story, embodying the tension between vampire and Lycan legacies. One imagined hybrid, perhaps Selene's protégé, might undergo a rigorous training sequence under her supervision, learning to balance vampire precision with Lycan instinct. Scenes could depict this character navigating obstacle courses, mastering acrobatic combat, and practicing energy manipulation that blends both species' abilities. Mentorship moments with Selene could be emotionally charged, you cannot rely solely on speed or strength. You must know when to strike and when to hold back. That choice defines who you are. Such sequences would develop skill, resilience, and identity, providing audiences with a deeply personal perspective amidst epic battles. Another hybrid character could struggle with allegiance, initially tempted by the power promised by rogue vampire factions or by the allure of Lycan freedom. Their journey might involve moral dilemmas, such as whether to protect an innocent vampire elder or pursue a personal vendetta. Dialogue reflecting inner conflict could intensify engagement. If I choose my strength over my conscience, what am I really becoming? Through moments of vulnerability, action, and decision-making, these hybrids would embody the franchise's recurring exploration of identity, choice, and the reconciliation of opposing instincts. Vampire Council politics could form another critical narrative layer. The Pureblood Council might convene in opulent, shadowed chambers, debating strategic decisions and ideological directions. Some members could advocate for total domination, while others push for cautious collaboration or recognition of hybrid potential. Tensions within the council could lead to betrayal, assassination plots, or manipulation of key figures, creating suspense and narrative complexity. For instance, a council member might secretly provide intelligence to Selene's coalition, challenging assumptions about loyalty and reinforcing the theme that morality is rarely black and white. Lycan society could also be explored in unprecedented depth. Beyond mere combat capability, their society might feature hierarchy, ritual, and philosophy shaped by centuries of oppression. Young Lycans could undergo rites of passage, testing both physical prowess and moral judgment. Elders might train leaders in strategy, emphasizing patience, observation, and tactical cunning. A Lycan does not strike blindly. We watch, we wait, and we act when the moment is perfect. These sequences would provide cultural depth, justify tactical behaviors during battles, and give Lycans narrative significance beyond being antagonists or secondary allies. Tactical battles could be broken down scene by scene, emphasizing strategy, terrain, and character-specific abilities. One imagined sequence could take place in a crumbling Gothic cathedral, where vampires use elevated platforms for precision attacks, hybrids navigate precarious beams blending agility and strength, and Lycans launch ground assaults exploiting structural weaknesses. Visual techniques could enhance the spectacle, slow-motion sequences highlighting supernatural speed, wide shots capturing chaotic multi-species combat, and shadowed lighting emphasizing stealth, threat, and dramatic tension. Character interactions during these sequences, rescue attempts, temporary betrayals, and strategic improvisation, would ensure that each skirmish advances both story and emotional investment. Another tactical encounter might unfold in an abandoned industrial complex, where rogue hybrids align with the antagonist vampire faction. Selene's coalition could infiltrate the facility, encountering traps, ambushes, and moral challenges. Dialogue could heighten suspense, every step could be our last. Trust no one, but protect those you can. These sequences would emphasize teamwork, strategic thinking, and character growth, blending cinematic spectacle with narrative purpose. The post-credits sequence could tease future installments, setting up unresolved tensions. Perhaps a shadowy figure observes the outcome of the climactic battle, signaling the survival of a dormant pureblood faction or the emergence of a new hybrid threat. A whispered line, "This is only the beginning," could hint at continuing conflicts, enticing audiences while preserving narrative continuity. Such an ending aligns with franchise tradition, balancing resolution with potential future storytelling opportunities. Throughout the film, thematic exploration would remain central. Choices between loyalty and ambition, survival and morality, individual desire and collective responsibility would permeate character arcs. Hybrids embody the fusion of opposites, vampires wrestle with power and tradition, and Lycans reconcile instinct with strategy. Dialogue, inner monologues, and character decisions would reinforce these themes, ensuring that Underworld 6 is not merely spectacle, but also a narrative of consequence, legacy, and identity. The cinematography would likely build on the franchise's established style while incorporating modern technology. Gothic architecture, urban landscapes, and forested environments would be lit to emphasize contrast, depth, and atmosphere. Combat sequences could integrate motion capture for fluid, realistic movement, and CGI enhancements for supernatural abilities. Camera angles might shift rapidly during intense sequences, then slow during moments of emotional resonance, balancing kinetic energy with character-driven storytelling. Color palettes could differentiate factions, cold blues and silvers for vampires, earthy tones for Lycans, and a blend for hybrids, helping audiences track allegiances visually while reinforcing thematic symbolism. Marketing strategies would likely emphasize character introductions, faction dynamics, and iconic visual sequences without revealing climactic resolutions. Teaser campaigns could highlight hybrid training, vampire council intrigue, and Lycan strategy sessions, building anticipation while maintaining narrative secrecy. Social media engagement, interactive experiences, and limited-release concept art could foster fan speculation and investment, creating a participatory culture around the film's release. In sum, this imagined Underworld 6 narrative integrates hybrid character arcs, vampire political intrigue, Lycan societal depth, tactical battles, cinematography, thematic exploration, and future setup into a cohesive vision. Each element balances spectacle with storytelling, action with emotional resonance, and mythology with character development, aligning with the franchise's legacy while envisioning evolution and expansion. The Underworld franchise is a landmark in dark fantasy action cinema, blending gothic visuals, high-octane combat, and a detailed supernatural mythology. Created by Kevin Grevioux, Len Wiseman, and Danny McBride, it began in 2003 with Underworld, introducing the secret war between vampires and Lycans. Central to the series is Selene, a vampire death dealer played by Kate Beckinsale, whose mission to eliminate Lycans is complicated by forbidden love, moral dilemmas, and discoveries about her own species. The franchise is known for its moody cinematography, stylized combat, and richly constructed world, hidden beneath human society. Underworld, Evolution, 2006, expanded the lore, revealing the deep history of vampire and Lycan bloodlines, and explored Selene's personal journey as she confronted her origins and moral choices. Lucian, the first Lycan capable of voluntary transformation, embodies the Lycan rebellion and moral complexity of the series. Rise of the Lycans, 2009, a prequel, highlighted the origins of Lycan resistance and the consequences of vampire tyranny, emphasizing love, sacrifice, and freedom. Awakening, 2012, introduced hybrids, beings combining vampire and Lycan traits, while humans became aware of the supernatural world, heightening conflict. Blood Wars, 2016, concluded Selene's immediate story, depicting struggles with vampire elders and hybrid threats, while exploring loyalty, morality, and the cost of power. Key characters define the franchise. Selene is disciplined, lethal, and morally nuanced, balancing duty with personal desire. Michael Corvin, a human-turned-hybrid, bridges human and supernatural worlds, symbolizing coexistence and identity struggle. Lucian represents Lycan resilience and rebellion, while vampire elders like Victor, Amelia, and Marcus embody authority, tradition, and the weight of centuries. Hybrids challenge established hierarchies, raising ethical questions and embodying the potential for evolution and change. Together, these characters drive narratives exploring morality, loyalty, identity, and the consequences of long-standing conflict. The franchise's mythology is complex. Vampires are hierarchical, long-lived, and bound by strict rules. Lycans value freedom but endure systemic oppression. Hybrids exist outside these boundaries, destabilizing traditional power structures. Gothic aesthetics, high-contrast lighting, and dynamic action sequences create a distinctive atmosphere that has become a hallmark of the series. Speculation about Underworld 6 persists despite the absence of official confirmation. Fan-created AI trailers, concept art, and theories envision the return of Selene, potentially Michael, and new hybrids navigating a world of emerging vampire factions, rogue hybrids, and mystical artifacts such as the rumored Crimson Blood, capable of altering the balance of power. Political intrigue among vampires, Lycans, and hybrids could drive conflicts, with factional struggles, leadership disputes, and evolving allegiances providing rich narrative opportunities. Speculative storylines suggest Selene might confront these threats while guiding a new generation of hybrids, balancing ethical responsibility, personal loyalty, and moral judgment. Fan projections also explore complex hybrid abilities, interspecies alliances, and the potential resurgence of ancient vampire bloodlines, expanding the narrative while maintaining continuity with prior films. The franchise explores recurring themes of morality, identity, war, and forbidden love. Characters face ethical ambiguity, often choosing between loyalty, duty, and personal desire. Hybrids challenge traditional notions of identity, existing between species and reshaping societal structures. Forbidden love, as seen with Selene and Michael or Lucian and Sonia, provides emotional depth and highlights the tension between personal and societal obligations. War and conflict underscore the consequences of prolonged struggle, revealing the costs of leadership, rebellion, and vengeance. Fan engagement has been central to the franchise's continued relevance. Social media, forums, and AI-generated content allow audiences to speculate and expand the narrative world creatively. These interactions have fueled discussion about Underworld 6, creating realistic portrayals of battles, hybrids, and political intrigue, even in the absence of official production. This participatory culture underscores the franchise's cultural impact and the passionate interest of its global fanbase. Culturally, Underworld has influenced the portrayal of female protagonists in action horror media. Selene exemplifies a multidimensional lead who combines physical prowess with emotional and moral complexity. The franchise's visual style, gothic, shadowed, and cinematic, has inspired subsequent supernatural films, while its serialized storytelling and intricate mythology have shaped audience expectations for continuity, depth, and multi-installment character development. Underworld 6 could continue the franchise's exploration of these themes, depicting Selene facing emerging hybrid factions, ancient vampire bloodlines, mystical artifacts, and the ethical dilemmas arising from power struggles and leadership challenges. Political intrigue among vampire elders, Lycan leaders, and hybrids could drive narrative tension, creating a multi-layered story that blends action, personal stakes, and moral reflection. Speculative endings vary. Some suggest reconciliation and coexistence, while others envision renewed conflict or hybrid-dominated societies, emphasizing the franchise's flexibility and thematic richness. The franchise also holds potential for expansion into other media. Serialized television or streaming series could explore secondary character arcs, hybrid evolution, and factional politics in greater depth. Video games could allow players to assume vampire, Lycan, or hybrid roles, making strategic and ethical choices that influence outcomes. Graphic novels or prose adaptations could provide backstory, historical context, and expanded mythological content, enriching the universe while maintaining stylistic and thematic continuity. In conclusion, Underworld 6, if realized, would continue the franchise's tradition of blending gothic aesthetics, high-octane action, and morally complex storytelling. Its legacy includes strong female leads, immersive world-building, intricate mythologies, and a global fanbase actively engaging in creative speculation. Whether produced as a film, series, or transmedia project, Underworld 6 has the potential to expand the universe while preserving continuity, deepening character arcs, exploring hybrid evolution, and maintaining the balance of spectacle and thematic exploration that defines the franchise. Even in the absence of official confirmation, the enduring interest, speculative narratives, and cultural impact of the Underworld universe ensure its relevance and potential for future storytelling across multiple media platforms. Through these possibilities, the franchise remains a vibrant example of immersive supernatural action, exploring morality, identity, loyalty, and the consequences of conflict in a hidden, gothic world of vampires, Lycans, and hybrids. The Underworld franchise has fostered one of the most dedicated and imaginative fan communities in modern action horror cinema. Even years after the release of Underworld, Blood Wars in 2016, fans remain deeply invested in the narrative universe, its characters, and the potential for a sixth installment. This sustained engagement is reflected across multiple platforms, from online forums and social media to fan fiction sites and content-sharing communities. Fans not only discuss the canonical films but also create speculative expansions of the mythology, generating narratives, character analyses, and visual representations that explore what could be in Underworld 6. This participatory culture transforms passive spectatorship into active co-creation, allowing enthusiasts to experiment with storylines, moral dilemmas, and cinematic techniques within the established universe. Online speculation is particularly vibrant, with forums and social media platforms hosting detailed debates about character motivations, potential plot arcs, and hypothetical alliances. Fans dissect the motivations of Selene, Eve, and other prominent figures, often creating elaborate genealogies, timelines, and power hierarchies. These analyses sometimes extend to predicting interactions with new or previously unseen factions, including rogue vampire sects, ancient Lycan cults, or mysterious hybrid lineages. The depth of these discussions demonstrates the franchise's rich narrative potential and the extent to which audiences are invested in the moral, strategic, and emotional dimensions of the story. In some cases, fan-created timelines or alternate canon scenarios are so sophisticated that they rival professional script outlines in complexity and coherence. Fan-made trailers and concept art have become a major facet of engagement with Underworld 6. These creations often incorporate AI-enhanced visuals, digital compositing, and original sound design to simulate the aesthetic and narrative style of the franchise. While not official, these trailers frequently generate buzz and inspire discussions about possible plotlines, casting, and visual design. Concept art allows fans to visualize new characters, hybrid designs, or imagined environments, offering a glimpse of how Underworld 6 could expand the gothic and urban landscapes that define the series. The creativity and dedication evident in these contributions reflect the franchise's enduring cultural resonance and the capacity of its mythology to inspire sustained imaginative work. Social media plays a critical role in amplifying fan engagement. Platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and YouTube facilitate the sharing of theories, artwork, and speculative content, creating a global conversation about Underworld 6. Hashtags, fan communities, and interactive discussions allow enthusiasts to connect across geographies, collectively refining ideas and debating possibilities. The viral nature of fan content ensures that Underworld remains present in the cultural imagination, even during periods without official releases. This environment also provides insight into audience expectations, highlighting which characters, themes, or visual elements are most anticipated and which narrative directions resonate most strongly with the fanbase. Fans also engage in meta-analyses, comparing Underworld 6 speculation to other supernatural media to identify narrative gaps, thematic opportunities, and stylistic evolution. These comparative discussions often highlight Underworld's unique blend of gothic horror, action-oriented combat, and morally complex storytelling. By contextualizing the franchise within a broader genre landscape, fans are able to propose innovative narrative strategies, anticipate potential challenges, and suggest ways in which Underworld 6 could maintain franchise continuity while exploring new creative directions. Such engagement demonstrates the sophistication and analytical depth of the fan community, underscoring the franchise's capacity to support intellectual as well as emotional investment. Another significant aspect of fan participation is creative reinterpretation. Fan fiction often explores alternate scenarios in which characters make different moral choices, face previously unseen challenges, or interact with newly imagined factions. These narratives allow fans to experiment with storylines that official productions may not pursue, providing a testing ground for ideas that could inform future installments. By simulating narrative experimentation, fans contribute to a living mythology, continuously expanding and reinterpreting the Underworld universe in ways that complement the franchise's official canon. Moreover, fan engagement influences expectations for the potential visual and technical execution of Underworld 6. Enthusiasts speculate about how advancements in cinematography, CGI, and practical effects could be integrated into the franchise, imagining more elaborate fight choreography, intricate environments, and atmospheric visual storytelling. This collective anticipation sets a high bar for potential official productions, creating both opportunities and challenges for filmmakers seeking to meet or exceed audience expectations. Fans' attention to aesthetic detail, ranging from costume design and lighting to supernatural effects and environmental realism, illustrates the franchise's significant impact on visual culture and the standards of action horror filmmaking. Cultural impact is further amplified through cosplay, merchandise, and participatory events. Fans recreate costumes and weapons from the films, bringing characters like Selene and Lycan to life at conventions and online events. Fan-produced music videos, short films, and interactive experiences expand the franchise's reach, blurring the line between consumer and creator. This participatory culture not only sustains enthusiasm but also reinforces a sense of communal ownership over the franchise's mythology, highlighting the interplay between audience imagination and narrative evolution. Finally, the symbiotic relationship between fan engagement and potential official narratives is a key consideration for Underworld 6. While speculation and creativity abound, any future production would need to balance audience expectations with narrative coherence, thematic depth, and franchise continuity. Fans contribute to a living dialogue about the series, shaping the potential trajectory of Underworld 6 through collective imagination, analysis, and creative expression. This dynamic underscores the franchise's ongoing cultural relevance, illustrating how narrative worlds can thrive through both official storytelling and the participatory creativity of engaged audiences. Long before the wars that scarred the modern world, the origins of the vampire and Lycan clans were rooted in legends older than recorded history. Vampires were born from the bloodline of the immortal purebloods, their power honed through centuries of ritual, political cunning, and the careful cultivation of magical abilities that allowed them to bend the natural order. Purebloods were aristocrats of a supernatural hierarchy, their influence spanning continents and generations. Their strength was not merely in combat but in manipulation, intrigue, and the knowledge of ancient blood magic. Their descendants, the modern vampire clans, retained glimpses of this power, though over time their once unified lineage fragmented, giving rise to internal rivalries, council disputes, and factions that often acted in isolation. The elders, repositories of memory and tradition, were both guides and obstacles, balancing ambition with preservation, control with survival. The Lycans, in contrast, emerged as a force of raw adaptability and ferocity. Originating from humans who had been cursed, or perhaps blessed, with the gift of transformation, they became creatures of instinct, strength, and pack loyalty. Their society emphasized survival above all else, and over centuries, they learned to manipulate their own physiology to enhance speed, endurance, and resilience. Unlike vampires, their power was derived from physical mastery, ancestral knowledge of hunting, and the cohesion of their packs. Yet beneath the surface of instinctive aggression, there existed intelligence and strategy, honed through generations of predation and war. The first Lycan leaders understood the importance of vision. They planned for centuries, anticipating the movements of enemies and potential allies alike. Their constant struggle against vampire domination forged a culture of resilience, innovation, and sometimes, ruthless pragmatism. Hybrids were the product of forbidden experimentation, a merging of vampire and Lycan blood that created beings of unparalleled power. Historically, attempts at creating hybrids were sporadic and often disastrous. Uncontrolled combinations resulted in creatures too volatile to survive. Yet the purebloods, through centuries of meticulous experimentation, learned to stabilize these bloodlines, producing hybrids with enhanced abilities, increased intelligence, and magical resonance. These beings, while physically formidable, also carried complex psychological and moral landscapes, as the duality of their nature required constant balance. Many hybrids, like Kale, emerged as key players in conflicts, their very existence challenging the established order and offering the possibility of unprecedented alliances or catastrophic domination. The fortress where the climactic battle had unfolded was itself a relic of this deep history. Carved from obsidian and enchanted stone, it had served as a seat of pureblood power centuries ago, a repository of knowledge, magical artifacts, and strategic designs. Its spires and corridors had witnessed countless schemes, assassinations, and secret rituals. Even in ruin, traces of its original purpose remained, wards etched into walls to protect against intruders, traps designed to incapacitate the uninitiated, and hidden chambers containing knowledge that could tip the balance of power in unforeseen ways. The fortress was more than a battleground, it was a testament to the enduring influence of the purebloods and the intricate interplay of magic, bloodline, and strategy that defined their approach to conquest. Selene, reflecting on the ruins, contemplated the cycles of history that had brought them to this moment. Each battle, each betrayal, and each alliance was part of a continuum stretching back centuries. She understood that victory was not merely measured in lives saved or enemies defeated but in the preservation of knowledge, the safeguarding of potential, and the cultivation of balance in a world prone to chaos. The alliances forged with the Lycans, once a matter of necessity, had evolved into relationships founded on mutual respect and understanding. These connections, fragile yet vital, represented the possibility of a new paradigm, one where cooperation might temper centuries of enmity, and where the next generation, represented by Kale, could inherit a world with more nuanced choices than the binary conflict that had defined their ancestors. Kale, exploring the remnants of the fortress, discovered hidden chambers containing artifacts and scrolls detailing the origins of pureblood supremacy, the techniques used to control hybrids, and the history of vampire-Lycan interactions. Each discovery deepened his understanding of the forces shaping his existence and the responsibilities that came with his unique bloodline. He began training under the guidance of Selene and advisors from both vampire and Lycan factions, learning to balance his dual nature, refine his abilities, and navigate the complex social and political landscapes he would inevitably influence. His growth represented not only the evolution of hybrid potential but the hope that the supernatural world could transcend its history of endless cycles of war. Political dynamics among the vampires continued to evolve. The council, once fractured and indecisive, began to embrace reforms emphasizing collaboration with Lycan leaders and recognition of hybrid autonomy. Elders debated the integration of hybrids into vampire society, weighing centuries of tradition against the potential for a new order that could stabilize the supernatural hierarchy. These discussions were fraught with tension, as conservative factions resisted change, fearing dilution of their bloodlines or loss of power, while progressive elements advocated adaptation as a means of survival. The balance of power, always delicate, shifted subtly with each negotiation, alliance, and act of diplomacy, reflecting the complex interplay between personal ambition and collective necessity that had always characterized vampire governance. For the Lycans, the battle and its aftermath similarly marked a turning point. The Alpha, once focused solely on territorial dominance and survival, now considered the broader implications of coexistence and strategic alliances. Packs began to communicate and coordinate beyond traditional boundaries, sharing knowledge, training, and resources in ways that had been previously unthinkable. The hybrid child, Kale, served as a bridge not just between species but between generations, embodying the potential for unity in a world shaped by centuries of conflict. Through him, Lycans began to see that raw strength alone would no longer secure survival, wisdom, adaptability, and cooperation were equally vital. The fortress ruins became a site of both reflection and education. Hidden chambers revealed ancient combat techniques, magical incantations, and philosophical treatises on the ethics of power, immortality, and responsibility. Selene, the Lycan Alpha, and Kale studied these materials, extracting lessons applicable to contemporary conflicts while honoring the historical context. These discoveries emphasized the cyclical nature of power and the importance of understanding history to avoid repeating its mistakes. Each artifact, scroll, and rune served as a tangible connection to the past, a reminder that knowledge, like blood, flowed through generations and that stewardship was a responsibility as heavy as any blade. Even with the immediate threat of the purebloods neutralized, the shadows of potential danger remained. Whispers of dormant factions, ancient curses, and untested magical forces circulated among surviving supernatural communities. Selene, ever vigilant, recognized that peace was provisional, a temporary alignment of interests in a world defined by power struggles. Kale, aware of his emerging role, prepared to navigate these uncertainties, balancing his abilities, moral compass, and the expectations of multiple factions. Together, they embodied a new era of leadership, one that fused centuries of wisdom with the promise of innovation, adaptability, and unity. In conclusion, the Underworld franchise stands as a landmark series in the realm of supernatural action cinema, distinguished by its dark Gothic aesthetics, complex mythology, and multidimensional characters. Across 5 main installments, Underworld, 2003, Underworld, Evolution, 2006, Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, 2009, Underworld, Awakening, 2012, and Underworld, Blood Wars, 2016, the series has consistently explored themes of loyalty, survival, rebellion, and ethical complexity within a meticulously crafted universe. The central narrative, anchored by Selene, a formidable vampire death dealer, provides both emotional and narrative continuity, allowing audiences to engage deeply with the consequences of immortality, interspecies conflict, and personal sacrifice. Through her evolution, the franchise has successfully merged high-intensity action sequences with nuanced character development, establishing a template for female-led action narratives within the supernatural genre. The confirmed history of the franchise highlights a clear trajectory of visual innovation, world-building, and narrative expansion. Each film has contributed to the establishment of a rich vampire Lycan universe, detailing the origins of these species, the intricate hierarchies that govern them, and the emergence of hybrid beings that complicate traditional power structures. Directors, cinematographers, production designers, and visual effects teams have collectively crafted a distinctive aesthetic marked by desaturated color palettes, Gothic architecture, and fluid action choreography. Music and sound design further enhance the immersive quality of the series, reinforcing tension, emotion, and narrative stakes. Across the 5 confirmed films, the franchise has maintained thematic consistency while innovating visually and narratively, cultivating a dedicated global fan base and influencing the broader depiction of vampires, Lycans, and supernatural conflicts in popular culture. In parallel with confirmed elements, speculation and fan theories surrounding a potential 6th installment, Underworld 6, underscore the franchise's enduring cultural impact and imaginative potential. Fans anticipate that the series could continue to explore unresolved conflicts between vampire factions, the rise of hybrids, and the ethical and political ramifications of ancient supernatural secrets. Speculation suggests that Selene would remain central, potentially serving as both warrior and strategist, navigating complex moral dilemmas and forging new alliances. The visual and stylistic legacy of the series is expected to continue, with dark Gothic aesthetics, sophisticated costume and makeup design, and advanced CGI used to depict dynamic transformations, hybrid powers, and large-scale supernatural battles. Fan-generated trailers, social media discussions, and online forums have fueled interest, highlighting the franchise's ability to inspire creative engagement and maintain relevance even in the absence of official confirmation. Culturally, Underworld has left an indelible mark on supernatural and action cinema. Its depiction of vampires and Lycans as morally complex, socially stratified, and visually distinct beings has influenced subsequent film and television portrayals, encouraging a nuanced approach to supernatural storytelling. The franchise's emphasis on female-led action narratives, particularly through Selene, has contributed to evolving discussions of gender representation in genre cinema. Furthermore, its global fan base, merchandise, transmedia adaptations, and interactive experiences have reinforced its presence in contemporary popular culture, demonstrating that its impact extends far beyond the confines of individual films. The persistent discussion of Underworld 6 illustrates both the series' sustained relevance and the audience's investment in its mythology, characters, and aesthetic identity. From a synthesis perspective, the franchise's enduring success lies in its ability to balance narrative complexity, thematic depth, visual innovation, and action-driven storytelling. Its universe is structured yet flexible, allowing for both continuity and expansion, and its characters are both archetypal and multidimensional, capable of inspiring audience empathy, admiration, and speculation. Confirmed elements provide a solid foundation of lore, character development, and aesthetic identity, while speculative elements, including fan theories about Underworld 6, demonstrate the imaginative possibilities that the franchise continues to offer. This interplay between canon and speculation sustains engagement, ensuring that the Underworld universe remains vibrant, relevant, and capable of inspiring future storytelling endeavors. Ultimately, the legacy of the Underworld franchise is defined by its unique blend of Gothic aesthetics, supernatural mythology, morally complex characters, and immersive action sequences. It has established a standard for supernatural action cinema, influencing the depiction of vampires, Lycans, and hybrid beings while contributing meaningfully to discussions of gender, morality, and narrative structure. The anticipation surrounding a potential sixth installment highlights both the narrative potential of the franchise and its enduring cultural resonance. Whether or not Underworld 6 is officially produced, the series' impact on audiences, creators, and popular culture ensures that its story, aesthetic, and mythology will continue to captivate and inspire, securing its place as a significant and influential franchise within the broader landscape of supernatural and action cinema. Delving deeper into the psychological profiles of individual characters in Underworld 6 offers a richer understanding of their motivations, internal conflicts, and narrative significance. Selene, as the central figure, is shaped by centuries of loss, betrayal, and relentless combat. Her psyche reflects a balance of disciplined control and emotional vulnerability, with the weight of past decisions informing every choice she makes. Flashback sequences could highlight formative experiences, such as battles with Lycans in the early 20th century or betrayals by vampire allies, reinforcing her cautious, strategic approach to leadership. Her interactions with hybrids are colored by a desire to guide without imposing, emphasizing mentorship while acknowledging their need to define their own paths. Moments of introspection, like staring over a ruined vampire cityscape or handling relics of the past, reveal the depth of her psychological landscape, grounding her action-driven presence in emotional realism. Hybrid characters could embody internal conflict in a particularly pronounced way. A young hybrid may oscillate between embracing the aggressive instincts of their Lycan heritage and the disciplined restraint of their vampire lineage. Internal monologues or dialogue with allies could reflect this tension. Every time I fight, I feel both sides tearing at me. How can I survive without losing myself? Another hybrid, perhaps older and more experienced, could serve as a mirror and guide, illustrating how to harness dual abilities without succumbing to destructive impulses. These dynamics emphasize the franchise's recurring exploration of identity and moral choice, portraying hybrids as both physically powerful and psychologically complex. Vampire Council members could also be explored through psychological profiling. The pureblood vampire queen, for instance, might be depicted as calculating, proud, and unyielding, with an obsessive dedication to preserving the perceived purity and dominance of her species. Subtle cracks in her demeanor, moments of doubt, grief for lost allies, or flashes of empathy toward hybrids, could create narrative tension, humanizing an otherwise formidable antagonist. Supporting council members might vary in temperament, one ambitious and ruthless, another fearful of change, and a third quietly subversive. The interplay of these personalities would drive intrigue, manipulation, and betrayal within vampire society, providing a compelling backdrop for the film's central conflict. Lycans could be characterized with similarly nuanced psychological dimensions. The elder Lycan leader, hardened by centuries of oppression, might exhibit stoic pragmatism, strategic thinking, and occasional moral compromise. Younger Lycans, in contrast, could display impulsive aggression, impatience, and the desire to prove themselves, creating tension within their own ranks. Dialogue could highlight generational differences. We have survived by patience, but you rush, and your fire may destroy us all, the elder might admonish. Such psychological contrasts reinforce the layered complexity of Lycan society, illustrating the tension between instinct, experience, and leadership. Dialogue sequences in major battles could heighten both action and emotional stakes. In a climactic cathedral battle, Selene might shout to a hybrid ally, "Hold your ground. Don't let fear dictate your strike," while the hybrid responds with a mixture of resolve and uncertainty, "I'm trying, but it's like two worlds fighting inside me." The pureblood vampire queen could taunt Selene, weaving psychological manipulation with combat prowess, "Centuries of your struggles, all for naught. This world will bend to pureblood rule, and you cannot stop it." Such exchanges provide narrative depth, illuminating characters' internal conflicts and motivations while reinforcing thematic elements of loyalty, identity, and the consequences of power. Expanded historical lore could connect Underworld 6 to prior films, deepening the universe. Relics of ancient vampire Lycan conflicts, previously hidden treaties, or lost bloodlines could resurface, providing motivation and context. For example, an ancient codex detailing early hybrid experimentation could reveal a centuries-long prophecy, guiding the narrative while linking past and present conflicts. Flashbacks might depict pivotal battles from centuries ago, illustrating the cyclical nature of war, the weight of legacy, and the long-standing enmity that shapes the characters' worldviews. These historical elements create continuity, reward attentive audiences, and enrich the narrative tapestry. Visually, Underworld 6 could employ advanced cinematic techniques to enhance storytelling. Gothic architecture could be accentuated with deep shadows, stark silhouettes, and strategic lighting to emphasize tension and thematic symbolism. Industrial ruins and forested terrains could be rendered with realistic textures, immersive depth, and dynamic lighting to heighten suspense. Action choreography might integrate slow-motion sequences, wide-angle tracking shots, and multifocal perspectives to convey supernatural agility, strength, and power. Cinematography could also reflect psychological states, tight framing during moments of internal conflict, sweeping visuals to convey epic battles, and subtle color shifts to indicate factional allegiance or emotional tone. Potential spin-offs or extended universe content could build on these elements. Television series might explore individual factions in depth, a Lycan-centric narrative depicting societal evolution, internal politics, and rituals, a hybrid academy series focusing on training, ethical dilemmas, and interspecies integration, or a pure-blood-focused political thriller highlighting vampire council intrigue and scheming. Video games or interactive media could immerse audiences in strategic battles, hybrid abilities, and factional alliances, expanding the franchise beyond cinematic storytelling while maintaining narrative continuity. Thematic exploration remains central. Underworld 6 could continue to probe questions of morality, loyalty, identity, and legacy. Hybrids embody reconciliation of opposing instincts, vampires wrestle with governance and tradition, and Lycans navigate strategy, honor, and survival. These intersecting narratives create moral tension, character development, and philosophical resonance. Actions have consequences, choices define identity, and history shapes future conflicts. Through these layers, the franchise balances spectacle with depth, engaging audiences on both visceral and intellectual levels. The Underworld franchise is a landmark in dark fantasy action, blending gothic visuals, intense combat, and a detailed vampire Lycan mythology. Created by Kevin Grevioux, Len Wiseman, and Danny McBride, it began in 2003 with Underworld, introducing the secret war between vampires and Lycans. The central character is Selene, a vampire death dealer played by Kate Beckinsale, whose mission to hunt Lycans becomes complicated by forbidden love, moral dilemmas, and discoveries about her own species. The series is known for its moody cinematography, stylized action, and immersive world-building. The films explore deep mythology, vampires are hierarchical and long-lived, Lycans value freedom but face oppression, and hybrids, offspring of vampires and Lycans, challenge existing power structures. Key characters include Selene, Michael Corvin, a human-turned-hybrid bridging species, Lucian, the first free-transforming Lycan, and vampire elders like Victor and Marcus, whose decisions shape interspecies politics. Themes of morality, identity, war, and forbidden love run throughout, giving the franchise emotional and philosophical depth beyond the action. Speculation about Underworld 6 continues, though no official announcement has been made. Fan-created trailers and concept art imagine Selene confronting new hybrid factions, rogue vampire bloodlines, and mystical artifacts like the rumored Crimson Blood, which could shift the balance of power. Political intrigue, leadership challenges, and hybrid evolution are likely to drive the narrative, continuing the franchise's exploration of loyalty, ethics, and identity. Fans envision Selene guiding new hybrid generations while balancing personal desires and moral responsibility, with Michael potentially returning as both ally and moral compass. The franchise has had a lasting cultural impact, especially in portraying strong, complex female protagonists in action horror settings. Selene's blend of combat skill, intelligence, and emotional depth set a standard for similar characters. Visually, the series' gothic, high-contrast aesthetic and kinetic fight choreography have influenced supernatural and action films, while its serialized storytelling has raised expectations for continuity, world-building, and multi-installment narratives. Underworld's potential extends beyond film. Television series could explore secondary characters, hybrid evolution, and political intrigue. Video games could let players engage with vampire, Lycan, or hybrid roles, making strategic and ethical choices. Graphic novels and prose adaptations could expand the mythology and backstories. In summary, Underworld 6, if produced, could continue the franchise's tradition of combining gothic style, thrilling action, and morally complex storytelling. Its enduring appeal lies in layered characters, immersive mythology, and fan engagement. Even without official confirmation, the universe of vampires, Lycans, and hybrids remains a rich and evolving narrative world, ready for new adventures across film, series, games, and other media. Rumors regarding the release of Underworld 6 have circulated intermittently since the conclusion of Underworld, Blood Wars in 2016, yet no official confirmation has been provided by the franchise's studio or producers. Speculation among fans and industry observers has suggested possible release windows as early as 2025 or 2026, though these dates remain unverified. The extended gap between films has created both heightened anticipation and uncertainty, with audiences relying on social media, online forums, and speculative journalism for clues regarding the project's status. The lack of a confirmed production schedule or official announcements contributes to the mystery surrounding the next installment, fueling discussions and creative engagement within the fanbase. Production considerations for Underworld 6 are complex and multifaceted. The franchise is renowned for its stylized action sequences, intricate visual effects, and immersive gothic environments, all of which require substantial planning, technical expertise, and financial investment. The potential revival of the series would likely necessitate a combination of practical effects, advanced CGI, and high-level choreography to maintain the franchise's signature aesthetic while meeting contemporary cinematic standards. Fan speculation often imagines larger-scale battles, hybrid abilities, and innovative supernatural powers, suggesting that any production team would face significant logistical and creative challenges in translating these ideas to the screen. Additionally, the integration of returning characters such as Selene and Eve alongside potential new protagonists or antagonists would require careful narrative balancing to satisfy both legacy fans and new audiences. Casting for Underworld 6 remains entirely speculative. Kate Beckinsale, who has portrayed Selene since the original 2003 film, is universally anticipated to return, as her character remains the emotional and narrative center of the franchise. Fans also speculate about the potential reintroduction of Eve, the daughter of Selene, as a primary protagonist, further expanding the narrative focus on legacy and hybrid powers. Rumored casting of new vampire elders, rogue Lycans, or ancient hybrid antagonists has circulated online, though these suggestions remain unverified. The casting strategy would likely aim to combine continuity with freshness, introducing compelling new characters while preserving the established mythology and emotional resonance of returning figures. The choice of director and creative team for Underworld 6 is a subject of intense fan speculation. Len Wiseman, who directed the first two films, established the franchise's visual and thematic foundation, while other directors contributed distinct stylistic flourishes in subsequent installments. A potential sixth film would require a director capable of balancing action, horror, and gothic aesthetics with narrative coherence, ensuring that the franchise's tone and identity remain intact. Production design, cinematography, and choreography teams would also play a crucial role in maintaining the franchise's immersive atmosphere, ensuring that environments, lighting, and fight sequences align with fan expectations while exploring new creative possibilities. Industry perspectives on the likelihood of Underworld 6 are cautiously optimistic but tempered by practical considerations. While the franchise enjoys a devoted fanbase and significant brand recognition, studios must weigh the costs of production against potential box office performance and streaming market dynamics. The technical demands of high-quality visual effects, large-scale action sequences, and elaborate set design contribute to substantial production budgets. Furthermore, the challenge of meeting both longtime fans' expectations and appealing to new audiences adds an additional layer of complexity. Analysts note that the combination of these factors, alongside the franchise's established mythology and potential for compelling new narratives, leaves the door open for Underworld 6, though no guarantees exist until official announcements are made. Marketing and promotional strategy would also play a central role in any Underworld 6 production. Given the long hiatus since the last film, studios would likely employ a multi-platform approach, integrating trailers, teasers, fan engagement campaigns, and merchandise tie-ins. Social media influence, fan-generated content, and online speculation could be leveraged to build anticipation while shaping narrative expectations. Concept art, behind-the-scenes footage, and early character reveals would serve to both excite existing fans and attract new audiences, ensuring that the franchise remains culturally relevant and commercially viable. Finally, industry observers consider several creative challenges that any potential Underworld 6 production would face. These include maintaining narrative continuity across multiple films, developing compelling antagonists and plotlines that build on existing mythology, and balancing the franchise's gothic aesthetic with contemporary cinematic technology. The integration of returning characters, hybrid powers, and fan-anticipated story arcs would require careful scripting and direction, ensuring that both longtime fans and newcomers could engage with the narrative. Despite these challenges, the franchise's established appeal, visual identity, and thematic richness suggest that a thoughtfully executed sixth installment could successfully reinvigorate the series. In conclusion, while Underworld 6 remains officially unconfirmed, speculation about its release, production, casting, and creative direction continues to generate excitement among fans and industry observers alike. The combination of a dedicated audience, rich mythology, and compelling central characters provides a strong foundation for potential revival. Fan engagement, social media discourse, and creative speculation further underscore the franchise's enduring cultural relevance, while industry analysis highlights both opportunities and challenges in producing a film that meets the expectations set by its predecessors. Any future installment would need to carefully balance continuity, innovation, and audience engagement, ensuring that the franchise remains both faithful to its roots and capable of exploring new narrative, thematic, and visual dimensions. Months passed since the fall of Vera and the destruction of the Pureblood Fortress, yet the supernatural world remained on edge. Scattered remnants of Pureblood loyalists prowled in secrecy, and ancient magical wards, long dormant, began to reactivate in unpredictable ways. Selene patrolled the vampire territories, her senses keen for threats, while the Lycan Alpha coordinated his packs, ensuring vigilance across forests, mountains, and hidden enclaves. Despite the relative calm, there was no complacency. Centuries of history had taught them that peace was fragile, and that power, once disrupted, rarely stayed dormant for long. Kale's training intensified. Selene and the Lycan Alpha devised exercises that tested both his physical abilities and his mystical resonance, forcing him to adapt to unpredictable scenarios that simulated battlefield conditions. One morning, in a secluded training ground illuminated by the silver light of a full moon, Kale faced a simulation of hybrid forces attacking from all directions. Shadows stretched unnaturally, controlled by his own developing powers, creating illusions and manipulating the battlefield. He learned to balance aggression with strategy, instinct with calculation. Selene observed closely, correcting posture, emphasizing precision, and teaching the integration of speed, reflexes, and magic. The Lycan Alpha taught endurance, resilience, and the use of brute force in tandem with cunning, creating a holistic approach to warfare that no ordinary vampire or Lycan could achieve alone. Political maneuvering continued behind the scenes. The Vampire Council debated new laws to integrate hybrids and standardize their recognition within society. Some elders resisted, fearing dilution of tradition and loss of hierarchical authority. Others argued that the integration of hybrids was essential for survival and the stabilization of alliances with Lycans. Secret meetings, clandestine negotiations, and subtle displays of loyalty and power became a daily routine. Every conversation carried weight, every decision influenced not just the immediate factions but also the next generation of leaders who would inherit centuries of conflict and wisdom. Lycan factions similarly adjusted to the changing landscape. While the Alpha had succeeded in uniting many packs during the recent war, minor groups remained independent, skeptical of vampire intentions and cautious of hybrid involvement. Diplomatic missions were undertaken, emphasizing mutual benefit, coordinated defenses, and shared knowledge. Trust was slow to build, but incremental victories in cooperation reinforced the potential for long-term stability. The hybrid child, Kale, became a symbolic figure of unity, bridging gaps not only between species but between generations and ideologies, embodying the hope that past cycles of violence could be disrupted. Despite the apparent peace, threats persisted. Reports of rogue purebloods conducting experiments on both vampire and Lycan subjects began to surface. Selene, armed with her centuries of experience and unparalleled combat skill, led elite squads into isolated regions to neutralize these threats. Battles were swift and decisive, blending martial skill with supernatural abilities. Each mission revealed the lingering influence of the pureblood faction, underscoring the necessity of vigilance. Kale, though still developing, joined these operations, using his abilities to manipulate environments, anticipate enemy movements, and assist allies in ways that often turned the tide of engagements. One particular confrontation occurred in a hidden underground city, long abandoned and rumored to be a former site of hybrid experimentation. The city's narrow corridors, labyrinthine chambers, and ancient wards created a deadly environment. Hybrid operatives loyal to rogue pureblood leaders had fortified the area, preparing traps and ambushes to challenge Selene and the Lycans. Kale, sensing the magical resonance, guided the team through the maze, neutralizing traps and creating subtle diversions. Selene moved with lethal precision, dispatching enemies while maintaining coordination with the Lycan elite. The battle demonstrated the evolving capabilities of hybrids, the importance of strategic alliances, and the necessity of integrating intelligence with raw power. Throughout these engagements, dialogues between characters revealed deepening personal bonds and philosophical reflections. Selene, discussing strategy with the Lycan Alpha, often reflected on centuries of conflict. "We've fought for survival for so long," she said one night, overlooking the ruins of a battlefield. "But what we're doing now, it's not just survival. It's shaping the future. Every decision carries a weight that centuries ago we couldn't have imagined." The Lycan Alpha nodded, a rare contemplative expression crossing his rugged features. "Strength kept us alive," he said. "But wisdom, trust, and guidance, that's what will ensure we thrive. Not just for us, but for them." He gestured toward Kale, who stood quietly nearby, listening, absorbing, and learning. Kale himself began to understand the complexity of power and responsibility. He realized that his abilities were more than tools for combat, they were instruments that could influence social dynamics, mediate conflicts, and create lasting impact. In conversations with Selene, he questioned ethical boundaries, the morality of decisions made in the name of survival, and the implications of his growing influence. "If I can control power," he asked, "should I always use it? Or sometimes, should I let others make their own mistakes?" Selene, recognizing the wisdom in the question, responded, "Power is never absolute. Understanding when to act, when to restrain, and when to guide, that is what separates a leader from a weapon." As months passed, the supernatural world slowly adapted to the new reality. Vampire and Lycan forces worked together to establish patrols, shared territories, and joint training facilities. Hybrids, under Kale's guidance, began to be trained not only in combat but in diplomacy, ethics, and strategy. Selene oversaw the integration, her leadership ensuring that mistakes of the past, excessive secrecy, betrayal, and unchecked ambition, were mitigated. The Lycan Alpha provided mentorship in resilience, combat strategy, and the management of complex social hierarchies within the packs. Together, the three formed a triumvirate of guidance, representing the balance between power, experience, and potential. Yet, subtle threats continue to emerge. Ancient magical wards, remnants of forgotten pureblood experiments, occasionally activated unexpectedly, causing minor disturbances that reminded all parties that the supernatural world was far from stable. Rogue elements, emboldened by secrecy, tested limits, creating opportunities for conflict. Selene, the Lycan Alpha, and Kale responded swiftly, combining their skills to neutralize these challenges while teaching lessons of vigilance, responsibility, and ethical decision-making to their allies. Every skirmish, every negotiation, became a test of the evolving integration of species and the effectiveness of alliances forged under duress. The Underworld franchise, a cornerstone of supernatural action cinema, is distinguished by its dark Gothic aesthetics, intricate mythology, and complex characters. Beginning with the original film in 2003, it has carved a unique space in popular culture by blending action, romance, horror, and supernatural lore into a cohesive universe. The series centers on the ongoing conflict between vampires and Lycans, exploring themes of loyalty, betrayal, survival, and ethical ambiguity through the lens of richly developed characters, most notably Selene, a vampire death dealer whose journey drives much of the narrative. Created by Len Wiseman and produced by Screen Gems and Lakeshore Entertainment, the franchise spans 5 main films: Underworld, 2003, Underworld, Evolution, 2006, Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, 2009, Underworld, Awakening, 2012, and Underworld, Blood Wars, 2016, each contributing to the expansion of its supernatural universe while maintaining stylistic and thematic consistency. The first film, Underworld, 2003, establishes the premise of the vampire-Lycan conflict and introduces Selene as a highly skilled vampire warrior devoted to eradicating Lycans. The plot revolves around her investigation of mysterious deaths and the discovery of Michael Corvin, a human caught in the supernatural crossfire who ultimately becomes a hybrid of vampire and Lycan. Selene's journey in the film explores themes of trust, love, and moral ambiguity, particularly as she uncovers betrayals within vampire society and confronts the complexities of interspecies conflict. Underworld, Evolution, 2006, continues Selene's story, expanding on the historical context of vampire and Lycan bloodlines, revealing ancient secrets, and escalating the conflict between the species. Rise of the Lycans, 2009, serves as a prequel, exploring the origins of Lycan rebellion under Lucian against the tyrannical vampire Elder Victor, providing essential context for Selene's later actions. Awakening, 2012, introduces hybrids and examines Selene's role in protecting her allies in a rapidly changing world, while Blood Wars, 2016, portrays the resurgence of vampire factions and internal political conflicts, solidifying the series' focus on morally complex characters navigating high-stakes supernatural politics. Selene's evolution as a character is central to the franchise. Introduced as a disciplined, ruthless warrior, she grows into a more complex figure, balancing strength and vulnerability, combat skill and emotional intelligence. Her relationship with Michael Corvin, her encounters with hybrids, and her confrontation with vampire elders all contribute to her multidimensional character arc. Other characters, such as Lucian, Victor, Sonia, and David, enrich the narrative, representing rebellion, authority, forbidden love, and the potential for reconciliation between species. Hybrids, combining vampire and Lycan traits, challenge traditional hierarchies and introduce unpredictable dynamics, both narratively and thematically. Through these characters, Underworld explores morality, loyalty, identity, and the consequences of power in a universe where immortality and secrecy shape every decision. The franchise's world-building and mythology are among its most compelling elements. Vampires are structured within rigid hierarchies, led by elders such as Victor, Marcus, and Amelia, emphasizing bloodline purity, loyalty, and secrecy. Lycans, initially subjugated, develop social structures based on pack hierarchy, strength, and adaptability, with leaders like Lucian inspiring rebellion. The series incorporates hybridization, supernatural artifacts, ancient secrets, and detailed combat abilities, creating a universe where ethical ambiguity, social dynamics, and personal choice intersect with high-stakes action. Gothic urban landscapes, secluded natural environments, and carefully curated color palettes reinforce the duality of vampire control versus Lycan adaptability, contributing to immersive storytelling. Combat choreography, transformations, and supernatural powers are visually represented through meticulous special effects, practical stunts, and CGI, blending realism with fantastical spectacle. Fan theories and speculation about a potential sixth installment, Underworld 6, illustrate the franchise's enduring appeal. While no official confirmation exists, fans anticipate continued exploration of vampire faction conflicts, hybrid emergence, and ancient secrets. Selene is expected to remain central, navigating moral dilemmas, leadership challenges, and personal evolution. Potential plotlines include the resurgence of pure-blood vampires, strategic interspecies alliances, and rediscovered supernatural artifacts driving new conflicts. Fan-generated trailers and online discourse have fueled imagination, shaping expectations regarding casting, narrative direction, and visual style. Hybrids, as both narrative catalysts and thematic devices, remain central to speculation, embodying questions of identity, power, and morality that have defined the franchise since its inception. Production insights reveal a consistent commitment to visual style and immersive storytelling. Len Wiseman's directorial approach in the original films established a gothic, nocturnal aesthetic with desaturated blues and blacks, dynamic camera angles, and fluid action sequences. Subsequent directors, including Patrick Tatopoulos, Mans Marland, Bjorn Stein,